Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2021 Honda Odyssey. Now when it comes to hitches for the Odyssey, there's quite a few different brands as well as capacities that go along with those. And something I'd recommend to everyone is a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which we have on our CURT today. The other thing is deciding what you want it to look like. This is a hidden cross tube, and being that this is my dad's van, I wanted something that looks nice and clean for him, and that's why I chose this one. The other ones are going to be an exposed cross tube, meaning you're going to see a good majority of the hitch hanging down underneath the bumper, which on a minivan, it's not that big of a deal, but if you can get a cleaner look, why not? And this one does go behind the fascia, so the installation's a little bit different. The 2" by 2" receiver tube opening is going to be important because that's the standard size when it comes to a lot of hitches and accessories. So when choosing bike racks, cargo carriers, or even ball mounts to tow a trailer, the 2" by 2" is kind of the standard. So you're going to have tons of options when it comes to any of those accessories, and all of them are going to stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. Now this is not included with the hitch, but it's going to be required to hold your accessories in there. Now, if you plan on leaving your accessories on the back of your van long term, I would highly suggest getting a locking pin and clip, and that way you can lock this in place and it'll be a good deterrent. That way people aren't just walking away with whatever's loaded into your receiver. If you plan on towing a trailer, you're gonna have rolled style safety chain loops, nice and open, so standard S-hook goes on there, no problem. The same with even a larger clevis style, not gonna be an issue. And as far as towing, you're going to want to adhere to the capacities. And with this hitch, it's actually fairly decent. It's coming in with a gross trailer weight rating of 3,500 pounds. And that's going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. And then your tongue weight, that's going to be more for your suspended accessories. Cargo carriers and bike racks will put pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening, so making sure you don't go over the tongue weight rating is going to be important. And this one at 525 pounds is pretty solid. You could get a cargo carrier loaded up on vacation, or even a 4-bike bike rack loaded with bikes, and you shouldn't have a problem with that. So nice tongue weight rating, decent for a trailer, definitely going to open up to what you can do with your van. Something that's important when choosing accessories, if you're getting a bike rack or cargo carrier that stows in a vertical position, you want to make sure that it's going to be able to work with the Odyssey. And we have a bunch of test fit videos to show you how those products interact with the vehicle, but if you want to make your own measurements from the center of the hitch pin hole to the furthest point of the fascia, it's at 4.5 inches. Getting something with potentially a little bit longer shank might be worthwhile. As far as ground clearance goes, from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground is going to be 14 inches. And that's fairly decent. Really, that's going to come down to choosing a ball mount for this van. So what you can do is measure from the ground to the top of the coupler of the trailer you plan on towing, and then get that measurement, compare it with that 14 inches that we just had, and then you can determine that rise or drop necessary to get your trailer nice and level. More than likely, you're probably going to get a small rise for this. So just something to think about when hooking up to that trailer. Getting the right one, make sure everything's nice and level is going to be key. Now I mentioned that this one bolts up behind the fascia, and that's how you get that clean look. So the thought of pulling off this whole rear fascia probably is scary, but this is actually a really easy vehicle to do this. And I think the juice is worth the squeeze to really get that clean look. The other ones do just simply bolt up, but you are going to see that whole hitch. So I would say that the difficulty rating, as they'll state from the manufacturer, is 10 out of 10. That's really because the fascia has to come off, but it's really not that difficult. And I'll walk you through all the steps. So if you are doing this at home, in your driveway or garage, you can follow along and get your hitch installed. But if you watch the video and decide, I don't have the tools, the place, or even the want to get that installed by myself, you can use the dealer locator here at eTrailer to find someone close to you to get your hitch installed. But for you DIYers, stick around, let's get your hitch installed. To get our hitch installed, the fascia is going to be coming off. Having a nice extra safe place to put your fascia when getting the hitch installed is going to be key, and also having an extra set of hands during this installation, especially when you remove the fascia. It's rather large and can be cumbersome, so to keep any scratches from happening, or also to get the hitch raised up, to have that extra set of hands is going to be key. And to begin the installation, we're really going to be just taking off a bunch of hardware from the bottom, and we'll work our way up. But with that being said, you might want to have an organized place to keep all of your hardware. It'll make reinstallation a lot easier. For our first step, we'll head underneath to the driver's side, and there's going to be a series of plastic push pins that you'll see that just kind of go along this edge. So we'll get those popped off. And to do that, a few different methods. You can use a trim panel tool if you have one available. You basically just pry on the center And if you can get that center portion to pop out, you can remove the whole thing, but sometimes it's a lot easier to use a flathead screwdriver to pry these open. If you wedge the edge in there, a lot of times what I'll do is just do a twist motion. And if you need to, you can work kind of side to side. Some of these can be a little bit tricky. But once you get it to that point, normally you can just pull that center and the whole thing will come out. If it separates from the bottom portion, just make sure you keep them together as you get them removed. So we'll go ahead. We're going to start by taking these ones out first. On the back of this panel, if you kind of go up right behind the rear wheel on the frame rail, there's going to be a 10mm bolt that we're going to remove that's attaching it. So with that 10mm socket, we'll get that taken down. Now that panel is almost ready to come down. There's going to be some screws that we're going to tackle in the wheel wells, but while we're underneath the van with our tools for the plastic push pins, we're going to work our way over. So there's two in the center here that normally you'll remove no matter what, but if you have a hands-free lift gate, there's going to be a total of 6. So you can see those that are going to be located here. And when we get those 6 removed, you'll see on the other side that there's 2 plastic push pins. That's just for an exhaust deflector. And once the fascia comes off, it's not going to cause any issue as far as getting the hitch in place. So we can leave this one here for now, but we will get these 6 removed on our van. Now we'll head to each of our wheel wells, and we're going to want a small Phillips head. So a stubby screwdriver, you can probably get to these. I'm using just a small bit driver ratchet that really helps make it easy on these. So we're going to get the 3 of them removed here, and we're going to be doing that on the other side. But being specific to the driver's side, there's one screw that's tucked a little bit further back that's also a Phillips, and that's the last piece that's holding up that panel underneath. So make sure you get that removed on your driver's side, and then just get the 3 on this side taken off as well as the other side. Now with that screw taken out, we should be able to get our panel taken down. And we're going to set this aside. We're going to be trimming it out a little bit later to make clearance for the hitch. So for now, just put this somewhere safe. Open up the rear hatch, and right by the taillights underneath here, there's going to be 2 screws that are going to be holding in on each side. And I'm going to be using a 5mm Allen key. You can also use a 3/16, whatever you have handy. So we'll get these both taken out. We're going to put some painter's tape along the seam of the rear fascia as well as the rear quarter panel. And the reason being is as you pull this off, it has the potential to kind of rub against your clear coat and your paint and scratch. So this is just a nice, quick, easy way to prevent that from happening. So I'll do this on both sides of the van. To get the fascia removed, it's pretty easy. It's just going to be a series of clips along pretty much the whole fascia, and so it helps to get the outside portions all unsnapped first, and then you work your way towards the center. Now, it's really imperative to make sure that you don't pull back too far. We're going to have some electrical connections that we'll need to separate, and the first one might be a little bit tight, but once you get one to pop, you can just slowly work your way back, and when we start to pull this back, this is when we can see the electrical connection. So I have one that's located right here. So this is when it helps to have that extra set of hands to hold it up so you can get this separated. And if you push on this tab on the bottom, you should be able to get that to drop out. And there's also going to be one that's on the passenger side as well. It's going to be very similar, and set it aside. Next thing we need to do is get our exhaust pipe lowered down. Now, you'll see the weld nuts that are located in the frame where we're going to be bolting it up. And you could get the hitch in there and maybe get the hardware started. It's a lot easier having that extra room, especially when you're going to be torquing all that hardware down. So to lower this, first thing I want to do is create a cradle. You can use a box, a block of wood, just something to put underneath the exhaust, because as we lower it down from the isolators, it's going to want to hang down, and you don't want to put all that stress on the exhaust. So just putting something to support it. I have a cam buckle strap here. This is just going to be a little cradle, and that way it'll support that exhaust when it starts to lower down. We're going to be removing 2 isolators, and this one's pretty easy to get to with the fascia off. And you can pry from the bottom. You can use the hanger. You can also do from the top. Now, sometimes these see a lot of heat, and so as they heat up, sometimes they want to conform a little bit to those hangers. So I recommend give it a shake, kind of loosen them up, but also putting soapy water along here will help lubricate it. It makes it a lot easier to pop them out and also to pop them back in. So we'll be tackling this isolator as well as one right in the center on our cross member. So similar concept, you can choose to pry from the top or bottom, but using the hangers as leverage here really makes it a lot easier. So I will spray this down with some lubricant, but a pry bar, long flathead screwdriver, whatever you have handy is able to be used as a tool. You can also kind of wedge it in here. Now grab one of the bolts from your hardware kit, and something generally with these, they're a little bit more protected with that cover, but it's a good thing to make sure that you test to make sure that they're not corroded or rusted, because if you raise the hitch up and try to get it started and it won't, it's going to cause a little bit more issue than you need to, because you can prevent that by taking the bolt and running it through the 3 weld nuts on each side. It should thread in fairly easily. You'll have one here, one right behind it, and then one further back. So just take the bolt, run it through. That'll help kind of clear things out. If you do run into some really heavy buildup or anything like that, you can take a 19mm socket and kind of walk that through. If it's a little bit more serious than that, you can put some penetrating oil and take a tube brush and scrub that out, or you can also use a tap if it's really, really bad. But the main thing is just making sure that these go up easy, so when you're holding the hitch up, you can get them all started. So now with your extra set of hands, we're going to get our hitch raised up into place. And I recommend having one bolt and a conical tooth washer ready on each side. And the teeth are going to bite into the metal of the hitch, so just make sure that you have it in the proper orientation. And as we lift this up, we're going to go over the exhaust, and we're going to get one started on each side with just a few threads, enough to hold that up. It'll make it a lot easier to get the rest of the hardware up. We'll just take the rest of our hardware and get those started. If you want, you can start snugging them down just with hand tools, because we're going to come back with our torque wrench and torque them down properly. So no need to get crazy here. With those snugged down, and now we'll come back with our torque wrench. Torque settings are found in the instruction manual. And this is going to be an important step, because it's going to make sure that it's going to be tight enough, obviously, to use your hitch for towing, but also not too tight, putting stress on the hardware or the weld nuts. If you need a torque wrench, we have them available here at eTrailer. You can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free, but this is going to be an important step, so make sure that you torque these down properly. With that all torqued down, the hitch is officially installed, but we are going to be needing to do a little bit of trimming on the fascia as well as that underbody panel for it to all go back together. I'm going to get the exhaust isolators put back up. We should be okay to do that, and then I'll show you how to trim out the fascia. We're going to be cutting this section out, and I used painter's tape to kind of give us a reference of where we're going to be cutting, and you want to find the center mark. The best way I found to do that is if you measure out from end to end on these holes on the far back. It should be 16 inches. I used that 8 inches as my center reference and then measured out from there based on the instructions. And as far as cutting this out, you can use a whole host of tools. If you have a Dremel, that works great. I really like a oscillating multi-tool. It works really good to cut through this plastic. So I'll go ahead, we'll get this cut out, and then we'll take a file, clean this all up. Now I got my fascia put back in. Make sure that you get your electrical connections put back in as well. And for our underbody panel trimming, super easy. We're going to just follow along this section. We're going to notch that out, and that's going to allow it to slide back up with that hitch in place. And as far as cutting, I'm going to be using my multi-tool and just following along, but you can use a Dremel again on this plastic. You could also probably get away using a pair of tin snips, whatever you have handy. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this cut out. So now with this trimmed out, we're just going to go back, get those burrs knocked down, and then we can take the 10mm bolt, the screw, and the plastic push pins, get that put back in place. Now all you need to do is load whatever accessories you have in your hitch, put in your pin and clip, and start enjoying the hitch on the back of your Odyssey. So that's going to do it for a look and installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2021 Honda Odyssey.